You're going to hold it like this, okay? And then
The journey of documenting the construction of Allegiant Stadium from the ground up has been nothing short of spectacular. We've witnessed many firsts, been privileged to meet many talented people, and we've had a front row seat to an incredible endeavor. Beyond the construction portion of the project, quite a bit of thought has gone into the operational side of things. And now that the building is up and operational, we thought we might take you on a ride behind the scenes, showcasing the things you wouldn't ordinarily think of. So let's call this the Things You Wouldn't Think Of episode. The Raiders, united with a team of tireless leaders from Nevada, are creating an ultra-modern, permanent stadium for the Raider Nation to call home. These are the stories of the people and the project, told from the ground up. When the 2020 NFL schedule was announced in May, no one thought the excitement of playing the first game in the brand new Allegiant Stadium, a Monday night prime time game no less, would be tempered by an empty house. But here we are. And the fans aren't the only ones disappointed by this turn of events.
It's important to keep it in perspective. Obviously, we're disappointed. I think everybody's disappointed, but the circumstance really shouldn't diminish the significance of the accomplishment.
I love building personally because it shapes the communities that we live within, right? And then once we shape those communities, in turn shape us, right? So these buildings are meant to be occupied.
This is my first major project. It was awesome and scary and emotional and crazy and rewarding and frustrating, all wrapped into one.
So I started here in February of 2018, and the last 2.5 years have just been pretty much a blur. I feel like only now, since we've gotten CFO, I've been able to kind of take a deep breath and look back and see that everything that the team has accomplished.
I've never opened a building in the middle of a pandemic, so I've never experienced that sense of emptiness.
You know, I'm excited to see the building come alive the first time it gets fans, to gain its personality and all of those things that I believe come with it.
These folks have always been tenants. They've always borrowed space in other people's buildings for the entirety of their existence, and they finally get not only their own building, it's the best building in the league as far as I'm concerned. And it's heartbreaking. I don't know, I'm not even going to try and diminish my disappointment and unhappiness about that.
This wasn't a one-year decision. This was a 5-decade decision. So this project and what it means to this community and what it means to the Raiders and the fan base is going to live on for past my lifetime. And it's important to keep that in perspective. So the current situation is not what we envisioned and not what we hoped for. It just gives us an opportunity to prepare for it and do it right a year from now.
But there will be a day when the fans will be allowed in to savor everything the stadium was created to offer them. The path to that day requires quite a few things behind the scenes that one wouldn't necessarily think of, starting with this question. How do you quickly and safely move 65,000 fans in and around the stadium? Most sports stadiums utilize pedestrian ramps in their design to assist in the quick movement of tens of thousands of fans throughout the building. You've seen the often used pedestrian ramps protruding off the corners of these buildings. However, aside from the extra acres required, that extreme change of aesthetic to the design was never going to be allowed. So, keeping owner Mark Davis's vision in mind regarding that aesthetic added to the fan experience. The team chose to use an internal footprint of escalators to solve the problem. Allegiant Stadium has a remarkable 46 escalators, while most stadiums average only around 20.
What you guys are looking at is one key element of the building, which is one of our 46 different escalators. Really important when we looked at the game day experience for our fans. As soon as they get into the building, they want to find where they're going. And we knew with 65,000 guests, we were going to have to get a lot of different people up, down, around, and escalators are a huge part of that and getting people to and from where they need to go.
Typically, we build on site, do everything in the conditions, and move along with the building. In this case, per the schedule, the steel schedule, it was suggested that, hey, maybe we could do this off-site. So we acquired this 50,000 square foot warehouse to assemble 38 of the 46 units. You're looking at 8 units amongst all this. This is 8 units not married. This is how they come. This is how we unload them from the flatbeds.
Think about close game, Raiders kick a field goal in the last second, then you've got 65,000 people all leaving at the exact same time. Escalators are not cheap, elevators not cheap, but again, the vision of game day experience, fans first, convenient. Ramps are in a lot of stadiums, and we do have a ramp here in the building. We wanted to use escalators and elevators to be a very efficient way to get people up and down.
And we should note that these escalators, after vigorous testing off-site, were some of the first finished components installed due to their size. Basically, the steel structure was built around them. Pretty cool, right? The average human at rest generates about 100 watts of energy every hour, or about the same heat given off by a normal light bulb. Multiply that by 65,000, and the stadium quickly becomes an oven. To keep the spectators cool while saving energy, the stadium is utilizing the most advanced HVAC system combining artificial intelligence with a very old technology, evaporative cooling, that makes the AC at certain times of the year almost free.
So the first thing we're going to look at is the bowl AIRSIDE. So obviously this is the biggest source of CFM and air in the stadium. We have 8 air handlers on the lower bowl. We have 4 in the mid bowl, and we have another 8 on the upper bowl. So a total of 20 air handlers serving your whole bowl proper. Our total airflow for the bowl is right around 1.2 million CFM. So we're moving a lot of air to make sure that the fans and occupants are comfortable throughout any season, any event.
Once a fan is in their seats, we got to make sure they're comfortable in that location. And our transition from going from an outdoor venue where you have a lot of outside factors, you've got the sun, it can be cold and rainy. I think the benefit of playing in an indoor stadium is that you have a little bit more control over that. And I think one of the things that we paid a lot of attention to was black building, desert, heat. And, most of the questions were, how are you going to keep the building cold, and how are you going to ensure that the guests that are here feel comfortable when they're in the stadium?
All air cooling systems operate roughly the same way, whether you're in a stadium, your house, or even your car. A series of fans draw in the warm air through a duct system and over a series of coils containing cold water, or coolant, which cools the air being returned back to the space. This coolant water, having been heated by the air in the duct, is constantly pumped through a chiller, which dissipates that heat and pumps it back to the duct to do the process all over again.
So here in Las Vegas, they have an arid climate, meaning that the humidity is very low. The atmosphere likes taking on moisture, so we can push a lot of that moisture to the atmosphere. That means that we're sending out very cold water to the system and bringing back pretty warm water compared to a traditional chiller plant that you would use in a system like this. So right now, even though it's 105 degrees outside, we can produce 75-degree water to these chillers, which makes the chillers more efficient in providing that 40-degree water to the air conditioning system within the building. If we were in a more humid climate and the wet bulb, if it was 105, wet bulb was up at 90, we've got 100-degree condenser water, right? And so now you're trying to take water from 100 degrees to 40, your compressor just got a lot larger.
The big difference at Allegiant Stadium is the low humidity in Las Vegas allows the coolant to be sent out to a tower where natural evaporation is used to help cool the water and greatly reduce the load on the chiller, thus creating almost free cooling. Pretty amazing.
Traditionally, building engineers have to come in here and make a decision and say, okay, we're going to go into this mode now, manually change stuff, let it stay, and then when we believe it's going to get warm out, we'll come back in here and manually change it back. The automation within the system will allow it to do it, whenever the stadium determines it's allowed to do so. So again, the energy efficiency piece, we're trying to reduce as much energy as we can while producing the same amount of air conditioning.
Here we have bowl controls, we have floor plans for HVAC, chilled water plant, hot water system, and domestic.
And we've actually commissioned the bowl to be able to set it to the temperature that they would like. So we know that all of the chillers talk to each other and they talk to all the air handling units, the fan coil units, everything else inside the building. So any mechanical, electrical, plumbing system is key to the person's experience that they have here. And we just want to make sure that's the best one they can get.
There was a lot of intentional things that we did in the design of the building to maintain aesthetics with also having a functionality. And the one thing that we're going to kind of look at is the duct sock. And to be able to cool the upper deck of the stadium without having large AC vents that would, really turn a beautiful building into a little clunky. You're looking right now at the duct sock. So really it's a decorative piece and it serves a very functional purpose in providing air and AC into the building. So when you're looking up right now, you're seeing kind of a black cloth. It kind of goes around the entire exterior of the building on top. But underneath, you're going to see tiny holes, and that's actually pushing cool air out into the upper deck.
65,000 people will quickly generate a lot of trash. And on a hot Las Vegas day, that trash could become really unpleasant really quickly. However, the engineers thought about that as well. And as far as trash goes, this system too is state-of-the-art. There are around 700 trash and recycling receptacles in the stadium you will see. But in the background, there's a significant army of workers you won't see that make all that trash disappear.
We have 65,000 fans in the building. On average, each fan will produce 1 pound of waste or trash per game, per event. So we got to manage that 65,000 pounds of trash, which breaks down to 32 tons of trash. We have one trash chute here, and when it does, it opens up. This goes all the way down to our event level. We actually have a gray bin, big whale bin, that will actually catch the bag or the trash dumped in there. The unique piece about this feature is that we do not allow anybody else to open up a trash chute below us on lower floors to prevent injury or anything else from a bag coming down. They're putting in there, maybe exploding on them, making a mess, or just in general from a safety perspective. So in addition to the trash chute system, we actually have a trash chute cleaning system as well. This system here is fully automated. We set it, and when it does, it basically jet washes the entire chute. We may do this once or twice every event to keep the trash moving fluidly.
If this was an apartment building, I think we'd be about 10 stories high, loosely. What's the highest point that the garbage would be dropping from?
I would say the 8th floor, 8th story, about 80, 85 feet high.
Do you plan to recycle?
We do.
Okay.
We do. So part of that number, we talked about the 32 tons of trash. We feel we want to be aggressive, and probably 8 tons of that, 25% of that ton, is recyclable. We're talking plastic bottles, cardboard. Cardboard's a huge, huge proponent of recycling in our building. Nobody realizes how much cardboard gets done. We probably average about 13 tons of cardboard in the event. So again, if we put the mat together, it's a huge process for us, but also a beneficial process to the environment and sustainability program we want to push here.
Something you may have thought about, but really no one wants to talk about, is 65,000 people flushing the toilet. But now that the topic's out there, let's think for a second about thousands of toilets flushing at halftime, all at once. Kind of boggles the mind, actually. In the industry, this is what they call a super flush. But what you probably don't know is the super flush isn't really about the downstream effects of 65,000 people. It's really about being able to supply enough water at the right pressure on the upstream side all the way to the top of the building. And that takes a lot more coordination than you might think.
Welcome to the 2020 Allegiant Stadium Super Flush. We've all gathered here today to flush toilets, so we're all very qualified to go to work today. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna give everybody an area where they're gonna go to flush that toilet. You're going to get a color and an area and a floor on the building. When you get to that bathroom, that's your bathroom. Because of socially distancing, you get one bathroom and you gotta own it. And we will say things like, okay, event level, color blue, area C, flush. And as you do a flush, you flush the toilet, and then you move to the next toilet, and you flush the toilet. You don't go da-da-da-da-da-da, because nobody uses the toilet like that, right? And you might think to yourself, well, Mary, what happens if something starts leaking? We do not stop the super flush unless we have a major leak. You're just gonna note it on your packet that you're gonna get up there, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna QC all those and fix them.
Awesome. You feel like you own it?
Feel like I own it?
You own it?
And I like that there's no line.
Trained for this all my life. It started when I was a kid, junior level, went out, practiced a little bit, worked our way up to the big time, and here we are, Amy and I. The big question is, and I asked them, they told me no, but I wanted to practice.
Early days, we would actually do like events with the schools in town, and they would bring out like busloads of kids, and they would let kids come and just start flushing stuff. We just wait now for them to tell us when to start, and then we can go.
Red C is in cat. Go ahead and start flushing.
All right, let's get started.
Because we're not like the spring line on the main with everything jumping in, so we're looking.
Blue A. Go ahead and start flushing. Blue A.
Go ahead.
The majority of the urinals in my bathroom.
You guys got everything you need as far as readings down there?
Yeah, they're good.
I think we should all feel pretty good about our careers at this moment.
Keep flushing. Something else you might not have considered is what happens if there's a major loss of power to the building. After a couple incidents of power loss in the past, specific measures have been put in place to ensure that 65,000 attendees will never be left in the dark.
An NFL stadium requires a lot of power. We also have redundancy. We have some requirements by the NFL. We also want to make sure that if power goes down in one section of the stadium, that we can revive the power and continue on with our events.
We have 3 separate feeds from NV Energy. That is our utility provider for the stadium. At any given time, we can support the stadium on 2 of those 3 feeds. We have 3 diesel generators, and they will sustain the building in the case of a blackout. This Cummins generator is essentially a diesel truck, and it is powered by diesel fuel, and it has the capability of generating 2 megawatts of electricity.
A building like this, does it have extraordinary power draw or power needs in comparison to, say, our neighbors across the way on the Strip, casinos or data centers or anything like that? What's unique about an NFL stadium in regards to power?
A data center has a constant draw of high-end electricity power, more like the 6 to 7 meg on a daily use. Whereas the stadium, we have a little bit more of a sliding wave. On the weekdays, we have a very low draw. There is a substantial power draw on a game day, on an event day. We would draw anywhere up to 5 meg on the event day.
We're gonna meet up here, obviously. We're gonna distribute to the floors. We're gonna pull the fire alarm pull station. We're gonna see the ribbon board. The announcement's gonna cut the music that's playing in the bowl. We won't be hearing that. We'll hear the fire alarm announcement. I'm gonna call up to 150 and 200 and have them check some doors to make sure they're open. 100?
100 and 150, ready.
Thank you, sir. 200?
Ready.
Isaac Bates.
Copy.
Allie.
We're good.
All right, Tim's with the fire marshals. We seem to be going good. Ben Souza, please pull the pull station. That is the fire alarm pull station. Silence the fire alarm. Matt, do you got a copy?
We're ready.
Do the countdown, please.
EPO in 3, 2, 1.
blackout test is very important because we want to prove two things. That when we pull the fire alarm system, you'll see that all of the notifications will go up on the ribbon board. So if there is a fire during a game, all the audio will go off, report to the fire alarm system, and then the ribbon boards will show up to also let people that can't hear know that they need to leave the building as soon as possible because there has been emergency reported and they need to leave. So really we're just trying to facilitate a fire life safety test and make sure both the fire marshal and the building inspector are pleased with the way that we're turning over the stadium.
One thing is certain, all the fancy state-of-the-art bells and whistles wouldn't mean anything without an incredibly well-trained staff. Yeah, this too is a massive undertaking that's often never even thought about. But in Las Vegas, the bar for hospitality is high, and in the current environment, it has been a challenge getting more than 5,000 employees trained the Allegiant Stadium way, offering an experience that will be second to none anywhere in the world.
So the teammates at Allegiant Stadium really have the best opportunity at bringing the game day experience to life, bringing the event experience to life, and that all starts with every single teammate in the building. What's really unique about what we're doing here is that every teammate has the same guest experience training, the same Allegiant Stadium orientation, and that all leads to the guest experience starting as soon as someone arrives. So it doesn't matter if you're working at the parking gate, if you're working at the box office, if you're working the security entry point, everyone has the same ability to impact the guest experience in a positive way. We have established what we call our playbook orientation program. It's a 3-hour orientation that anyone working on this property will go through. It doesn't matter if you work for our parking company, our event security company, everyone will experience it together in groups. And it really identifies what's our vision statement here at Allegiant Stadium, what are our commitments, things that we'll never compromise on, and how are we gonna all bring the guest experience to life by way of our behavior. When I see this logo, the first thing that comes to mind for me is family. So I'll tell you a little story. When my parents came to this country, they didn't know a lot of people, they didn't speak very good English, all that stuff, right? And so they used sports as a way to assimilate into American culture, and they moved to LA, and the Raiders were in LA back then, so they became LA Raider fans. So when I was growing up, all we did was we watched football together, we talked about the Raiders, we did all those things. So I really identified this brand with family.
When we've all done our trainings and we do our kind of on the job or during our own team briefings, you kind of get in your own little world of okay, this is the safe world, this is the Raiders world. But I really want us just for this next section to really think teamwork, huddle up.
We broke the win down to warm welcome, intentional interaction, and a notable farewell. So what does a warm welcome look like? Hello, how are you doing?
The Raiders. The Raiders. It's an accentuation. We are the best, not the best. The best. It's singular, it's commanding, and you are holding yourself up to a higher standard.
While it may be disappointing not to welcome the fans into their new home, it has been said best, greatness of the Raiders is in its future. The next chapter is just the beginning in a book that's already more than half a century long. Here, the fans will be able to celebrate the merge of a great and storied franchise with a great and storied city. We'll see you next time from the ground up.